Hi dear listeners. Did you know you can see the live version also? Check out the link below.
So as it was mentioned, we have been invited to enjoy a public discourse this morning to start the meeting with, and the title of the discussion is "You Can Enjoy Life in Peace Now and Forever." And this information will be delivered by Brother Micah Fountain from Windsor Congregation. Welcome, brother.
Have you ever been caught in a storm like the one you see in our image? The wind's blowing sideways, the thunder's crashing. Well, a few years ago, a friend and I got caught in a very similar storm in the Cook Islands in Rarotonga. And this tropical storm rolled in so fast as we were walking home that we had nowhere to turn to for cover, so we had to weather that storm for a while. But as we continued on our journey home, we turned a corner and saw a little shelter, a timber-framed hut with a straw roof, and we ran to cover, and under that shelter we were able to dry off, get warm, and we were safe from that violent storm that we got caught in. A couple of minutes later we realised that was part of a fish and chip shop, so our day really started to turn around. But, you know, the point is that even in the middle of that enormous tumultuous storm, we were able to find peace. We were able to wait under that shelter until the storm passed, and we could continue on our journey in peace. Well, friends, I'm sure you'd agree that the world around us today is far from at peace, isn't it? In fact, we could liken the tumultuous conditions we see around us in the world to a violent storm which completely surrounds mankind. Many are concerned for their safety on a day-to-day basis. We see crime, conflicts, anxieties about health, conditions which made the faithful man Job once write, "Man born of woman is short-lived and filled with trouble." Unfortunately today, many are caught in the middle of this storm, not knowing where to turn to for cover, not knowing where they can find peace today. And further, they wonder if the storm will ever pass, if we'll ever see true world peace on earth today. So to answer these questions, our discussion today is going to focus on answering three main questions. First of all, why has man been unable to achieve peace and security on earth? Secondly, is it possible to enjoy life in peace now? And thirdly, will we ever see world peace? But before we can answer these questions, it's important that we gauge or appreciate just how violent this storm plaguing mankind is. So to do that, we're going to have a look at the world issues which are preventing peace on earth today. So first of all, let's consider the obvious one, and that is war, isn't it? War is definitely an absence of peace. Now, in the 20th century alone, it's estimated that over 108 million people died as a result of war, which is an astounding figure to think about. But what about in the world right now? Are we any better off? Well, current news headlines have been dominated by the war between Russia and the Ukraine, haven't they? And we might not hear statistics there, but it's estimated that over 32,000 innocent civilians have died, and there's been between 100 to 200,000 casualties of the fighting soldiers. So that devastating war continues to rage today. And the sad thing is that's only one of 22 wars currently active in the world today. You might not hear of them, but if you can see in our image, the red and maroon coloured countries illustrate countries which are classified as having ongoing wars. So clearly these armed conflicts, they're part of this raging storm that is preventing peace in a lot of countries today. But you know, there are other situations which prevent people from living in peace today. One of those is food shortages. Now we know that that's something that developing countries really do struggle with. One poll by the United Nations estimates that around 842 million people worldwide are undernourished, which is more than 33 times the population of Australia. So a very sad statistic to think about. But the thing is that there's many humanitarian organisations that really do put in a sincere effort, don't they, to fight world hunger. Unfortunately, though, despite their best efforts, the United Nations survey continues that the number of undernourished people climbs by approximately 5 million per year. So food shortages, that's another really significant issue which stops people from enjoying life in peace today. But we also see problems in developed countries, don't we? So we might not have food shortages, but in developed countries, according to the American Gun Violence Archive, last year alone there were over 650 mass shootings, which was more than one a day, which killed 674 people and injured 2,700. Now, whilst we don't have the same scale of gun problems here in Australia, we still do have issues with things like terrorism, don't we? And we've seen that a number of attacks over the past few years, which have caused a lot of concern. And we see that concern and anxiety in people based on improved security that we need to have at big events. We saw that at the Melbourne International Convention. It's always on the back of people's minds, those concerns about things like terrorism. The point is that even in developed countries where we might have enough food, we still don't have a true freedom from conflict and hostility. We still have these serious concerns about our well-being. And finally, I'm sure we'd all agree that sickness is another element that can really prevent peace, life in peace today. We don't really have to explain how illness can take away peace from people's lives or disrupt lives, do we? Because we've all lived through the COVID pandemic over the past few years. We've seen firsthand the devastation and the anxiety caused by disease and illness. So sickness is another aspect of that violent storm that really plagues mankind today. But friends, the point of this review isn't to be pessimistic or defeatist. We just really want to encapsulate the full scope of problems which is stopping people from living in peace today, the problems which mankind have been unable to fix. So that raises our first question, which is, why hasn't mankind been able to achieve peace and security on Earth? Over the course of history, mankind's tried every different type of government imaginable, haven't we? Technology's improved, medicine advanced, yet true peace has always eluded mankind. So why is that? Well, our answer can be found in God's Word, the Bible. In the book of Revelation, the Apostle John has a vision of 4 horsemen. Each one represents a different characteristic of the last days. So if you turn with me to Revelation 6, verse 4, we can read of the second horseman's arrival. As we do this, it's important to note that this horseman arrives after Jesus is crowned King of God's kingdom in 1914. So speaking of this second horse, it says there, another came out, a fiery coloured horse, and it was granted to the one seated on it to take peace away from the earth, so that they should slaughter one another, and he was given a great sword. So since the arrival of this horseman in 1914, have we seen war on an unprecedented scale? Well, yes. We know that this horseman was clearly visible in 1914 with the development of the Great War, as it was known by then, or World War I. Now, the casualties of World War I were really unprecedented because for the first time in history, there was the combination of globally conscripted armies with automatic weaponry. But at the conclusion of World War I in 1918, was this horseman satisfied? Well, in answer, chapter 16 of the Revelation book points out that with his thirst for blood whetted, the rider of the red horse plunged into World War II. Instruments of slaughter became ever more fiendish, and casualties skyrocketed to 4 times those of World War I. Now, as we covered earlier, last century we lost 108 million lives to war. So I'm sure you'd agree that this horseman has had a visible and horrific impact on the world since its arrival in 1914. Mankind's inability to achieve peace today is a sign of this horseman's presence. It's a defining mark of the times in which we're living, the last days. Now, the horsemen which follow bring things like food shortage, disease, and death, which are all characteristics of the last days. But all of these symptoms of the last days originate from a single source, and that is Satan the devil. Now, when God's kingdom was established, Satan and his demons were thrown out of heaven onto the earth. Because of this, we're giving a really serious warning at Revelation 12, verse 12, if you'll turn there with me. Revelation 12, verse 12. It says there, on this account, be glad, you heavens and you who reside in them. Woe for the earth and for the sea, because the devil has come down to you having great anger, knowing that he has a short period of time. So the problems that we see on earth today, the problems that we've been discussing, they all stem from the devil's frustration and anger. He knows that the time he has left is short. And that's why, despite the best efforts of honest-hearted people on earth today, unfortunately we can expect world conditions to continue to worsen in this system. These violent storm-like conditions are all because the devil now resides on the earth, as we read there in Revelation 12:12. So now we understand where this violent storm-like conditions, where that actually stems from. It's because the devil's dwelling on the earth and we live in the last days. So the next logical question is it possible to live in peace today in this hostile world? Well, the answer can be found at Psalms 29 verse 11, if you'll turn there with me. Psalms 29 verse 11. So can we find peace in today's world? It says there, Jehovah will give strength to his people. Jehovah will bless his people with peace. So we have a guarantee there in Psalms from Jehovah that he will bless his people with peace. As the God of peace, Jehovah has the power to ensure that his people are blessed with peace, unity and harmony, regardless of the environment that they find themselves in. And we could illustrate by having a look at the Hutu and Tutsi tribes of Rwanda in Central Africa. Now, you might be familiar with what happened there in Rwanda, but for those who aren't, on the 6th of April 1994, the president of Rwanda was assassinated, and that sparked a genocide of the Tutsi people. So it was a very violent time. There was between 800,000 to 1 million Tutsi tribesmen killed in just 100 days. But it's interesting because at this time, over 70% of Rwanda's population was Christian, or professed to be, including both Hutu and Tutsi tribesmen. But rather than encourage unity, the prominent churches of the time chose sides for political gain. And it actually led one priest to confess that Christians have been killing Christians after a century of sermons on love and forgiveness. It has been a failure. So that was Christendom. But in stark contrast to this, Jehovah's people during this time enjoyed peace and unity among themselves. In fact, there's many accounts of our Hutu brothers risking their own lives to hide and protect our Tutsi brothers during this time. There's one account where a brother recalls that Hutu militia raided a small translation office, and obviously they found our Tutsi and our Hutu brothers working together in peace. And this angered the militia to the point where they motioned to take the pins out of their grenades. They wanted to kill our Tutsi brothers. But our Hutu brothers didn't allow that. They stepped up, they risked their lives, and agreed to very expensive terms that would see our Tutsi brothers be set free. Can't we see here, friends, Jehovah blessed his people with peace during that very violent time. Our Christian brotherhood superseded the racial division that was present at that time. And whilst those brothers were still surrounded by a violent environment, they enjoyed peace among themselves. Now, the peace among God's people is global, and it's brought together many of seemingly conflicting backgrounds. For instance, in the Middle East, we have brothers of Jewish origins enjoying peace with brothers from Arabic backgrounds, despite the racial tensions that are felt in the world around them. Similarly, in Ireland, brothers who once came from Catholic backgrounds serve alongside those who were once Protestants, overcoming a whole history of conflict. So the point is that the peace among God's people is so strong that it can counteract long histories of violence and prejudice. A few years ago, we all experienced this peace for ourselves, didn't we, at our international convention in Melbourne. And I'm not sure if you were there, but after 3 days of the Love Never Fails program, one rail official was moved to announce, "Thank you for being the best, most well-behaved, peaceful crowd we have ever transported." So the peace that we enjoy among our brotherhood really had an effect. It made an impression on the rail officials because of the contrast between our brotherhood and the world that they're used to dealing with. So when we look at examples of our Hutu brothers risking their lives to save our Tutsi brothers during a genocide, when we look at the harmony enjoyed between our brothers and sisters of seemingly conflicting backgrounds, doesn't it show that it is possible to live in peace and harmony in today's hostile world? Isn't it a fulfillment of Psalms 29 verse 11, where Jehovah promises to bless his people with peace? Really, God's organization is a sanctuary, just like that shelter in a storm. God's organization is a sanctuary from the violence, stress, and anxiety that we see in the world around us. So regardless of the war, discrimination, crime, violence which surrounds us, God's people can enjoy peace and love amongst themselves. Now, the opportunity to seek refuge from the storm that surrounds the world today, seek refuge in God's organization, is open to all of us. But there are some steps that we need to take to be able to get there, some requirements to take shelter from that storm. So today we're going to discuss 6 practical steps that we can take to make sure that we can enjoy life in peace now and forever. So the first step is found at John 17 verse 3, if you'll turn there with me. And this is really the foundation to gaining that peace that we've talked about today. It says there in John 17 verse 3, "This means everlasting life, their coming to know you, the only true God, and the one whom you sent forth, Jesus Christ." So the first step, or the foundation to living in peace today, is to come to know Jehovah and his son, Jesus. Now, the phrase coming to know means more than just gathering information, doesn't it? We can go to Wikipedia and come and look up information on really anyone, but it doesn't mean that we know them. See, coming to know involves becoming acquainted with Jehovah's personality, his purpose, his dealings with mankind. It calls for a careful study of the Bible, which is inspired of God. And as we do this, as we come to know Jehovah, we're going to come to admire his beautiful qualities, agree with his likes and dislikes. And we'll see that over history, whenever God's servants were loyal to him, they enjoyed peace amongst themselves. So, as we read there in John 17 verse 3, coming to know Jehovah is the first step to living in peace today. Now, as we come to know Jehovah, it's only natural that we'll be drawn to his very endearing and loving qualities. So really the next step is to gain a friendship with him. A friendship involves more than just knowing someone, doesn't it? But it includes a regular expression and communication which eventually forms a bond. So, as part of this expression, we need to communicate with Jehovah, and to do so, we know that we use the gift of prayer. Prayer's been likened to a door that we can open at any time. And on the other side of that door is our loving Creator and Father Jehovah, willing to listen to us. But you know, many people have expressed that they don't open that door as much as they should. Some reasons for this might be a busy schedule or not having time to give deep, meaningful prayer. Things like a busy schedule can act as locks on that door. But as the Watchtower of November 2008 states, the key to unlocking that door is to schedule a specific time each day, maybe just before bed, to have a genuine conversation with Jehovah. Not just a routine prayer, but to open up and to talk about specific things about our day. Talk to Jehovah as we would a friend. But, you know, to form that bond, we don't just talk to Jehovah, do we? We need to allow him to talk to us. And we do that by reading his word. But, you know, we receive instruction from the Bible twice a week at our meetings. But wouldn't it be a shame if that was the only time that we allowed Jehovah to talk to us? Really, we'd want to read our Bible daily to allow Jehovah to speak to us every day. Again, this can be challenging because of our busy schedules. But, you know, we only have to read a few chapters a day to be able to read the Bible cover to cover in a year. And our brothers have developed different tools which might allow us to continue our Bible reading even if we have a busy schedule. We have audio recordings of Bible books, and we have an abundance of spiritual food, don't we, friends? So these tools can be really helpful to help us to develop a consistent routine of daily Bible reading. Now, by scheduling time to talk to Jehovah and to allow Jehovah to talk to us every day, we are having a daily conversation with our Creator. And from those regular conversations, that's how we're going to form that bond with Jehovah, that friendship. This relationship is by far the most precious thing that we have as Christians, isn't it? And because of our appreciation for this gift, our friendship with God, we're moved to live our lives in a way that He approves of. In fact, John 5 verse 3 states that the way we can show that we love God is by observing His commandments without feeling burdened by them. So to have a friendship with Jehovah, we need to have those regular conversations with Him and to live our lives in accordance with His word. Now, the third step that we can take to live in peace today is to do with our association. You might have heard it said that your personality is the sum of your 5 closest companions. The point is that who we spend time with influences our thinking, and our thinking can influence our actions, the path of our lives. It's a domino effect. It's only logical then that to enjoy life in peace today, we'd want to surround ourselves with peace-loving people, people who love Jehovah and follow His law. You see, when we study and meditate on God's word, we're instructed on how to be peaceable, loving, and united. Now, of course, as we go about our week, we have to rub shoulders with many different people, don't we? We might have school friends, workmates. But really, when it comes to our free time, time where we can choose who we're associating with, wouldn't we much rather spend that with people who love Jehovah and who have been trained by His word? Those whose peaceful, impartial qualities can rub off on us. By surrounding ourselves with peaceable people who love Jehovah, will only improve the peace that we have in our lives. Now, our fourth step to enjoying life in peace today can be found at 1 Peter 3, verse 11. This is an instruction for all of us to follow. So that's 1 Peter 3, verse 11. It says there, "Let him turn away from what is bad and do what is good. Let him seek peace and pursue it." So what's the point there? That servants of God must actively pursue peace. What does that imply, though, that we need to pursue peace? Well, it implies 2 things. First of all, that peace is elusive. So because of our imperfect nature, it doesn't come naturally to us. Secondly, effort is required on our part to secure or to acquire peace. Now, unfortunately, it's just life that conflicts do arise. Everyone has conflicts in their lives, perhaps due to differences in opinion, differences in personality. But if we as Christians and all members of the congregation actively pursue peace, then we'll be able to put others' feelings above our own and resolve any problems that arise early before they become big, divisive issues. I'm sure if have you ever met 2 people that have a big divide between them that's gone for many years, sometimes they can't even remember what actually started it, but they've allowed it to grow. So this is all part of pursuing peace, is we want to nip these problems in the bud. We want to prevent issues from growing into large divisive problems. And that's especially important in the congregation because our Christian unity is at stake. The mentality of actively pursuing peace will help us to maintain that love and unity, that peace that we all enjoy in our congregation. Now, by pursuing peace and resolving disagreements quickly, we'll definitely improve and maintain the peace in our lives today. Now, our 5th point of enjoying peace today is that Christians must reject worldly thinking and display godly wisdom. Now, you might think, well, how can that improve the peace in our lives? Well, godly wisdom can really help us to avoid undue anxiety concerning the problems that plague mankind, some of those issues that we've talked about today. One issue that's caused a lot of concern recently, or a lot of anxiety, is that of climate change. We've seen on the news many are very passionate about saving the environment. We've seen protests all around Australia and the world. People are very worried that if things keep going the way that they are, that one day the earth will be uninhabitable. But because we have godly wisdom, we know that Jehovah will one day bring to ruin those ruining the earth, don't we? And we understand that Jehovah will one day step in and restore earth to its paradisaic conditions. So we're free from the anxiety that mankind will destroy the earth. Since we know that God's kingdom will fix these problems, we continue to put the kingdom first in our lives. And we know, just like it says at Matthew 6 verse 33, if we seek first the kingdom, all these other things will be added to you. So by rejecting worldly thinking and displaying godly wisdom, we can enjoy freedom from anxiety and inner peace today. Now, our sixth and final point is to never give up on our pursuit of peace. Becoming a peacemaker needs to be part of our dominant mental attitude. So how can we do this? Well, we can maintain a good personal relationship with Jehovah through obedience and regular communication with him in prayer. So by continually evaluating our standing with Jehovah and looking for opportunities to draw closer with him, becoming a peacemaker will be part of our identity. We'll be able to continually pursue peace. So these steps can help us to enjoy relative peace today. They can provide us with shelter from that violent storm which is plaguing mankind. But what about our future prospects for peace? Will we ever see world peace? Well, thankfully, enjoying life in peace is not limited to the present. Jehovah gives us a beautiful promise at Psalms 37, verse 10 and 11, if you'll turn there with me. Psalms 37, verse 10 and 11. Beautiful promise for all of us. It says, "Just a little while longer, and the wicked will be no more. You will look where they were, and they will not be there." And this is the point. "But the meek will possess the earth, and they will find exquisite delight in the abundance of peace." So here we have an assurance from Jehovah that that storm, which we're currently enveloped by today, the violence, the conflicts, the anxiety, that storm will soon pass. Jehovah will make sure of it. Our Heavenly Father can't wait to remove the violence that we see on the earth today and bless his people with true peace worldwide. Now, our final scripture for today's discussion is a promise from Jehovah to all of us, his loyal servants. And that's just down a few verses in Psalms 37, verse 37. So what will be the result if we're able to apply what we've spoken about today? It says, "Take note of the blameless one and keep the upright one in sight, for the future of that man will be peaceful." So if we can keep ourselves upright in Jehovah's eyes, if we can maintain our close friendship with him, then he promises us the grand blessing of a truly peaceful future. So let's review those three questions that we asked at the start of our talk. First question was, why has man been unable to achieve peace on earth? Well, we saw from Revelation 12, verse 12, that Satan now resides on the earth and that all of our problems stem from his frustration and anger. Further, we saw in Revelation 6, verse 4, that the unprecedented violence that we've seen on earth today is a sign of the second horseman's presence. It's a characteristic of the time which we live, the last days. Now, for these reasons, mankind has been unable to achieve true peace on earth despite their best efforts. So our second question was, is it possible to live in peace in this hostile world? Well, yes, we had that guarantee, didn't we, at Psalms 29, verse 11, that Jehovah will bless his people with peace. We saw examples of that blessing when we looked at our brothers of the Hutu and the Tutsi tribes in Rwanda and how they risked their lives to save each other during a genocide. A good example of true peace enjoyed amongst Jehovah's people. Now, additionally, we reviewed steps that we can take to live in peace today. So coming to know Jehovah and Jesus was the foundation, and that develops into a friendship with Jehovah. We can associate with people who love Jehovah, actively pursue peace, reject worldly thinking, and display godly wisdom, and to never give up on our pursuit of peace. If we follow these steps, we know that our friendship with Jehovah and involvement in his organization will allow us to enjoy the most peaceful life that we can today. And our third question was, will we ever see world peace? Well, Jehovah gives us that beautiful promise at Psalms 37:10, doesn't he? His servants will enjoy exquisite delight in the abundance of peace for all eternity. So when my friend and I got stuck in that storm in the Cook Islands, we ran to cover and we waited there until the storm passed so we could continue on our journey in peace. Likewise today, friends, let's take shelter from this world's violent conditions by gaining a friendship with Jehovah and being part of his organisation. And as we enjoy life in relative peace today, let's wait in eager expectation of the time where Jehovah will cause that storm to pass and we can continue on our journey of everlasting life in eternal peace.